Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Joel Mason, Artistic Director at Sunbury Shores Arts and Nature Center in St. Andrews, New Brunswick. And this is the first of hopefully many podcast, YouTube interview series that I want to do to get into all sorts of artists and their process, but especially artists in New Brunswick as we kind of stitch the fabric of arts and culture together. So today I'm joined by Stephen Hutchings. Um, Stephen was born at Halifax, did art history at the University of Toronto, and then went to the Ontario College of Art. His work is found in all sorts of different kinds of collections, corporate, private, museum. We're talking about in Canada, United States, and Europe, and that includes the Beaverbrook in Fredericton, the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa, the Glenbow in Calgary, Museum London, the Winnipeg Art Gallery, the Banff Centre, University of Toronto, Air Canada, just generally, Department of Foreign Affairs, Four Seasons Hotels, Milestones Restaurant, Royal Bank of Canada, Scotiabank, Sun Life, and even Swiss Bank in Canada. I hope they give you like one of those special Swiss bank accounts for being presented there. Thanks for being here, Stephen. Really appreciate it.
This is a pleasure. Great to meet you and great to be part of this program.
Yeah, fabulous. So wanted to invite you on to get to know you, because I'm newly in this position here at Sunbury Shores in St. Andrews, and I'm from away, as they say, and as I started being the artistic director here, I started hearing about Stephen Hutchings. I had a number of different people, like is the process and what that means, and they were trying to connect me with like-minded folks, and the number of different people were like, "Oh, you need to talk to Stephen Hutchings." Yeah, no, he does these in-process creative classes here at Sunbury, and I was like, "Really? Okay, wow, yeah." And so then I'm, starting any new job, you're sifting through the different things, and I got to the description of this course that you're set to do here on August 20th to 22nd, which is about something you call feedback forum. So maybe we could just start by, I'd love to just hear from you a little bit about what feedback forum is to you. Like, what does that mean? It's a little bit quizzical. Yeah.
It is quizzical, and in other venues at other times, these could be called critiques, art critiques. The difficulty with using critique is that sometimes people who have not been grown up in an academic setting or a school setting think a critique is a criticism. It's not. So feedback is perhaps a little broader, purposefully, in order to indicate that it's not a bunch of people taking pot shots at somebody showing their work and say, "Oh, well, why'd you do that?" No, it's completely the opposite. It's the workshop is really composed of two parts, if you like, maybe three. But the first part is people who have a body of work that they are interested in getting some comments on. The first part of the process is for them to consider what that work is. Take a look at your work. You're going to have to write something down. You're going to have to make a presentation of your work, and whatever you want. You've got a fair bit of time to talk about the content of your work, its iconography, its methods, the material, whatever you want. So the very first part of the process in joining the workshop is saying, well, what do I want to talk about? What is my work about? How do I want to present that to somebody else? And that process itself is perhaps one of the most important things that an artist can do. We all do it as professional artists anyway. Yeah. The workshop focuses in on that and gives you a time and a place to say, okay, August 20, August 21, we're going to start with this. And you get a chance to tell us what you're about. Now, the us leads into the second part of the workshop. The us is the people in the workshop, as well as myself. I'm if you like, the moderator. And the second part of it is in presenting the work, the people in the workshop, now you're in the workshop, your role is to look at those things that you connect with. Look at the things that you're not sure about and would like further explanation. Look at those things that you find intriguing or unique, and to engage in a conversation with the presenter so that there's a fair amount of knowledge passed in between. That happens
And that's
within.
the feedback.
Yeah, that's the feedback. It's not a critique. It's I like this, I don't like that. No, it's so you've got these. You use a lot of red and so on. You're talking about passion and how do you relate? Maybe it's something like that. So that's really what the feedback is. The third component is me, the wild card. And I'm not back there, as the expert. Although my role is to ensure that the direction is inclusive, that people don't get left out, that there's enough time and space for people to feel that they have communicated properly and thoroughly, and also to direct the conversation so that it doesn't become, I don't know, what, inappropriate or just off topic or
overtly critical or something like that. Like if so,
and the other rule that I have is to hopefully and purposefully direct the workshop to its conclusion, which is that each participant will leave the workshop motivated, positive about directions forward, and inspired to get back to the studio. So that's
Beautiful.
what the workshop is all about.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, there's so many amazing things in there to kind of pull apart. I remember when we talked before, when we were talking about doing this interview, you were saying that the preparation is half, or I guess a third, if we're going by the 3 parts. And that strikes me as such a gift to the artist of all stripes, because I remember, I finished my PhD, and I remember was talking to my supervisor, and did it in interdisciplinary fine arts, and so everyone's an artist, and we were talking about the stress that artists feel, that PhD students feel, that people in these kind of humanities-based or expression-based disciplines, feel the pressure. And she said, and she's brilliant, it's Erin Manning, she's a textile artist and dancer from Montreal. And she said, that's what's so funny about us, that I don't know anybody that works as hard as artists or PhD students, or these, like that, they don't have that many resources, and they're working out, they're always hustling.
Right.
But we live with this kind of thing, like, oh, there's going to be a incoming critique that's going to slice what little bit of energy I've built up, or and so that can make it scary to step into a place of critique, and that's or a place of feedback. And that's why I like how you so generously lay out what it is and what it isn't. And then it also strikes me that it's such a gift to ourselves to be able to take that time, because we're working so damn hard, to take some time to ask that question, like, what is my practice right now? Because I don't know what you think, but do practices change over time? Do artistic practices change without us knowing, would you say?
They do, and they change in different ways for different individuals. One of the most incredibly great things about visual art, like the best, is that it's the most unique, and it provides the opportunity for the most individualistic, off the wall, different types of artistic presentation. Music is more, I don't know. I mean, I hate to make judgments, like just categorical judgment, but the opportunity for individualism in visual art is huge, and it goes from performative things to installations, any kind of 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional work, computer, digital work. It includes music. It includes all kinds of different ways of voice, word art, verbal art, storytelling. It is broad, and so in visual art, that's our forte, and that's what's so fantastic about it.
Mm.
Just a little bit further, the metaphor. I mean, I work, and I love to work at huge scale, like billboard size, which I can't a lot because there's only so many places where billboard size paintings and drawings. But when you work on large work, when you work on work that is larger than your peripheral vision, and you're making your marks and you're doing your things, you don't get a sense of where you are, and you really need to step back. And this workshop is about like that. It's looking at the larger picture is your art practice, one's art practice. So how do you look at one's art practice? Let's step back a little way. So to pull yourself back and get a little bit of a broader picture, get your peripheral vision in, and that, to use that metaphor again, and in this case, bring other people in. And it's a chance then to see the forest for, and not just the trees.
That's right. Yeah, and it strikes me that bringing the collective into that, especially when it's facilitated to be a collectively generative and inspiring process, is a way of getting perspective that's bigger than oneself too.
Exactly, right? Joel. Who knows what somebody else's perspective might be on your work, and who knows what their background is, and that's really the kind of feedback that, oh my gosh, it's invaluable, just invaluable. I know in schools, when you go through school situations, post-secondary, I think it's studio work, people coming into your studio is a major part of visiting artist comes and has a chance to drop by your studio, show her the work, and they would comment on it, and that is rare. When you're off on your own, oh my gosh, you're off on your own, and then you're usually surrounded by, occasionally, I'm not making too many generalizations here, but it's a real opportunity to get a diverse collection of peers.
Yeah, and I imagine those relationships can go on too, like different collective activities I've been a part of. You stay in touch. I stay in touch with the people that have seen something in my work, and I will touch base with them again, and I've been doing that while I've been here, reach out to mentors, to other artists, just to get that reconnection, that loop, because for me, when I hear feedback, I want to put loop right back to it. Right. It's an engine. It's not just I'm going to give you this. It's like you're stepping into some kind of a relation where you're sharing the truth of a perspective, but you're also sharing the brokenness of the perspective. It needs someone to receive it and kind of loop it back.
Yeah, art is conversation. Art is based on relationship. I firmly, there are no hidden artists, because it's all about it. It's part. There's very seldom, is somebody discovered, oh yeah, they're just like brilliant. They worked alone their entire life, and now they're gone. And but wow, look, we discovered this fantastic body of work. It doesn't happen very often. In fact, it's incredibly rare, because the art proceeds within that dialogue of communication. What are you trying to say to somebody when you're making this?
Absolutely.
What conversation about? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So maybe just because this inspires me right now, and I love that about the art community, how it's this kind of chain of references that we kind of caretake together. So what are some of the chain of references that you kind of caretake forward? Your work, like you said, it's huge, it's big, it's evocative. You do so much with charcoal, pulling it away, trying to find luminescence and depth and layer. Are there people, living or dead, that are kind of there with you in the studio when you're working?
Interesting question, and putting me on the spot in this little mini workshop.
Yeah,
very good.
Who are the artists that haunt us? I guess is the question.
Yeah.
Or the writers. It's not just visual art. It's.
Oh, absolutely not. And I'm engaged in a writing project right now, one that was supported by Arts NB in a creative grant, and it really has turned my head, has given me the time and opportunity to do some writing, follow up on that.
Oh, tell me about that a little bit.
To link writing in with the visual stuff that I'm doing, and I had a show at the Beaverbrook in 2018. It was called Landscape Tales, and in conjunction with that show, I was able to produce a book that included the tales part of the landscape. And they were small snippets, if you like, very short, 300, 400, 500 word pieces about some of my process, some of the things I remembered from my past, family things, personal things that had a connection to some of the work in the show. And just to make a sense of narrative and tie that into the larger paintings, which when a large painting is quite large, does become a bit of a narrative. It's when you're in its presence, it's not a postage stamp on a screen or in a book. It's something you have to walk across in order to see, and that provides somewhat of a narrative structure in and of itself. So that physicality of it. So there's something that I've been doing just recently, and it has fed back into my own work. So my work references uses all kinds of things to get it going. Sketching, but primarily right now photography. Pardon me, I'm also photography is a huge love, and right now
Absolutely.
I'm working with images that are based on very early photographers called pictorialist photographers.
Right.
They work in around the world. There was a whole movement of them in the 1880s to about World War I, and their idea was that photography, which had been I'm going too much detail, but anyway.
No, you're not. No, I'm loving it.
The point of the pictorialist photographers was to take photography in the direction of making art statements that could equal and have the same relevance as drawing or printmaking or even painting. So these photographers used, they would set up shots, landscape shots, they would set up, they would pose images, they would look in landscape for different types of mysterious lighting and so on. They would add grain and so on. And they pushed the pictorialist perspective in their work in order to make artistic statements as opposed to documentary statements or illustrative statements with a camera, which in an indexical mode is an amazing illustrative or documentary.
Absolutely.
No, get rid of that.
Yeah, as you make it, you don't try to banish it. And this connects to what I wanted to talk about non-representational art, like not trying to banish the fact that you're there, a part of the ecology, not trying to make it seem like, oh, that this is just a transportation into reality, but rather reality is also this machine, and it's also me, and it's also the scene that's there. It's not just we don't just carry scenes from the outside into a gallery, right? So I want to go to, there's this thing in your artist statement that I loved that you said that I want to kind of reference. Let's see. You said that creating a description of the specifics of a location is not a concern. For me, the work engages with issues of identity, survival, and renewal in a difficult world, and with the ongoing struggle between the forces of darkness and light. And then earlier you say, you're not so much working in the mimesis, right? The imitation, right? Of the external world. So I wanted to ask you about that because your work is, of these huge natural scenes, right? And yet you're saying it's not really. I'm not trying to do a specific location. I'm not trying to imitate the external world. It's rather there is something. I think at another interview you say something existential there. Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, my concern is not to document. It really is another way of saying that. And I'm not that keen in saying, well, here's a fabulous. I live in Carleton County now. Here's a fabulous Carleton County scene. I'm gonna be a documenter of Carleton County landscape beauty. The things that concern me are more fundamental than that, and that's where the existential comes in a sense, also of existentialism, in relationship to that. The philosophical aspect of being existentialism being a philosophy based on relationship and based on knowledge and creating a sense of being in the world through that relationship. not through concepts or ideas or, some images of the ideal world, but just through an interactive process. So that extensionalism is in play in the work, in that I would look at a scene and say, what are the fundamental aspects? What's the identifying aspects? And what is in this scene that has an underlying sense of continuity, not just sits on the surface and can be swept away? What are some of the deeper aspects about a particular scene? So things become maybe not quite symbolic, but more allegorical, if you like. So,
Oh, that's interesting.
so instead of it, a tree being a symbol of a growth, and it's more of an allegory, a story about survival. So I look for a little bit of a deeper connection. That's
Yeah.
trying to summarize that.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I find it interesting in when we're kind of moving between these definitions, which I don't find them that interesting anymore, the fine art or craft art or whatever, but there can be a reliance on representation, even though, like you say, right there in the encounter, in something like plein air or something like that, there is already a relation happening, but it can sometimes be done in a way that for me is too kind of representational, but for good reasons, which is kind of weirds me out, like that it's about appreciation of the local, which is something that people in New Brunswick, like, we love that. We want to up the local. We want to value it because we believe in it, and we've gotten through hard times together. So I'm kind of interested in. I look forward at Sunbury, and I wonder how it's done down there at the McCain Gallery in Florenceville. That I don't even know if it's a balance, and I wonder what this would how this would happen in your workshop on August 20th. When you have this mixture of art that is celebrating the local, wanting to say it's from here. What would you say when it's really connected to the local place? And then how would you go into some of these layers of deeper intention or
Oh, a really good question. And really, the local is what we have. That's our métier. That's our material. That's what we have. We have the world around us. And so, as you were pointing out, my work is very, looks very representational. Is representational. It might not be documentary, but the local is really the world around us, and that's where we get what we make our connection with. How we make that connection is to me way more interesting than the outward aspect of that connection. What is that connection all about? Is that forest a scary thing for you? Is it just a bunch of trees? You're just trying to. Are you trying to just get some shapes and patterns? Is it a graphic exercise here about pattern making, or is there some kind of mystery in that forest? Is there the darkness of it? Is there some kind of sense of oh my gosh, dread or foreboding? Is the forest, is there openings in the forest? Is it something where, oh yeah, you can see a way through that forest? Is that what your relationship is with the forest? These are questions that I think are fundamental to what one might be trying to say. In a video, it could be a question of okay, great, we've got a forest here. We're moving through time, though. Video is about time. So how does the temporal aspect of video, of your video, and how you're exploring that, function vis-a-vis the imagery? So, does that give you a?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter the material. The same with writing. It's the same kind of questions. If you're writing something, it's like, yeah, but fundamentally.
Yeah, and this is what got me excited about the class, is that, and I've heard you say that a few times now, like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Like, the class on August 20th, the 22nd, it's for any medium.
Yeah.
And I think that I know there's already some people signed up excited about various visual arts components, but for everyone watching, that can include the written word, that can include music, that could include, especially like your own practices that include multiple things, you know, like a,
Yeah, so my experience, just to touch on that,
yeah.
in my own particular art practice, I use all the Adobe Creative programs. So I'm fluent in, I'm not great in Illustrator, but I'm really fluent in Lightroom and Photoshop completely.
Mhm.
InDesign, I was a publisher for 20 years. I know,
Okay.
page layout and printing and editing. I'm actually not a bad editor. So and the computer stuff, I'm as I say, all over that. It's my forte. But then I do charcoal drawing on surface, as basic as you can get. A piece of dry burnt wood on a surface goes back a few hundreds or thousands of years. But I also do oil painting too. So I'm into that. And my history, my academic training was in art history, so I'm quite conversant in speaking with art history. Beyond that, as I said, that publishing leads into writing.
Hmm.
I'm also a printmaker in that I do digital printing. I do multimedia digital printing and have exhibited the prints, and photographer. So I do a lot of photography, digital photography, but I had my own darkroom, did analog photography. So I conversed in that. And I used to teach at a craft school, and my parents were potters. So I taught at
Fabulous.
Sheridan College, Oakville campus when it was around in Toronto, and I taught drawing to glassmakers, jewelry makers, woodworkers, and
Fabulous.
pretty broad range.
Yeah,
And
I know. And
I also do public art, and so I have a piece of public art. Actually, I just noticed it's hanging on the wall here, sort of standing upright. It's a piece that's in Bristol here in Florenceville that went up last year.
marriage pole, right?
The marriage pole, yeah, a 30
Yeah.
foot high piece of welded steel that went up. So yeah, many different ways that I can get involved in.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to, I mean, because the marriage pole is up now, right?
Yes,
It's been up for a year now. Is that right?
yeah, it was installed last June. Yeah.
I'm excited to come and visit you and to see it in person because it looks beautiful in the pictures.
Great.
I love the pictures of it being unloaded in this huge flatbed.
Yeah. So medium is not the issue here. Really, the issue is what's your intention? What's your intention with your art practice? What is your art practice? Where do you want to go with it? Where do you think you are now?
Yeah.
Material is certainly a part of that, but this is not a how to. Here's how to make great expressive lines. No, this is more about, do you want expressive lines or do you want just documentary lines?
That's right. Yeah, because these decisions can kind of make themselves along the way when we're working and following things, and so to loop back, especially with others, strikes me as a real gift, and I want to throw my own backing behind this workshop because I'm excited about what interdisciplinarity, can do for the art scene here in St. Andrews and in New Brunswick. You know what I mean? What those conversations can do, how they can. It's not just cool people and their cool perspectives. It's also like someone that works with metal,
Right.
seeing wanting more texture in a painting, or a painter wanting a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that in a song. This to me starts to get to some of the fundamental interrelation of the ecology of the world that we're living in, which I think the art galleries and art scenes have a part to play in lifting up, is that interconnection, that way in which we're different, but we're also inseparable, and so what we feel, what we think, what we sense matters for each other. And then if we can have ways that we take a second, and talk about it in a place that's generous, which I think you've done a wonderful job setting up. I just want to back that all the way and say, let's have a bunch of these. Let's make this a practice in and of itself.
Well, they could be lots. They are lots of fun, by the way, and it's the kind of feedback that I really enjoy is when somebody's making a presentation. There's a comment, they say, "Wow, I never saw that. Oh my gosh, that is, holy moly, that is really terrific. I didn't see that in my work before. Oh, that is so great. It's just wow. It's like eye opening. Whoa.
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
insect
yeah.
somebody else. That's what we can, and they're fun. Oh my gosh, the whole idea here is to have fun over this time. It's like, this is not grueling, guys. This is,
Yeah,
make a few jokes,
yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
supportive. It's supposed to be fun and supportive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, yeah. Jerome Andrews from Deer Island is exhibiting here right now, and is
Yeah.
along with Ann Johnston, and Jerome's work. I find Jerome's work so fabulous. It's so, it's very like the islands are all like Deer Island and the Western Isles archipelago, and but it's also so weird. He there's one that called Egret Love, where and I'll put the image connected to the video later. And it's I don't know if you know that painting, but it's like the sky, because the skies here in St. Andrews are insane. They're amazing. And the sky color in Egret Love is exactly the colors that have become popular in an internet aesthetic called vaporwave,
Okay.
and which are these deep, crazy magentas. It kind of gets into 80s typography, and a lot of posters you'll see for the last couple of years have been employing this aesthetic. And there's something I want to just celebrate and love about how Jerome Andrews over on Deer Island is painting vaporwave from the sky. It's incredible. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Great.
I just want to say thank you so much, Stephen, for taking a few minutes to talk with me over here about these things. I know we're going to talk a lot more as life goes on. And I just wanted to mention also that the other great thing for people who are listening is that the cost of this workshop is really reasonable. It's $150 for 3 days, and that's because of support from the Sheila Hugh Mackay Foundation, supporting visual arts. And of course, Sheila Hugh Mackay was active in the fiber arts from the 80s through the 2000s here in New Brunswick. And then upon her passing, left a generous endowment to enrich the art scene of New Brunswick. And so I just think it's kind of wonderful that it makes sense to me that in a workshop that's about enriching and encouraging artists, that would be supported by a foundation underneath that. So
it's fabulous, and I really, really, really appreciate. I know Sheila Hugh Mackay Foundation has done great things. Even here not even here, but here in Florenceville as well, and the workshop, the River Arts Center, supporting the printing press, a new printing press that was installed 3 years ago, and they're
awesome.
Just. I'm delighted and thrilled to have their support offered to potential participants in this workshop.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah, and you've got Renata over there right now, don't you? And stuff. She's
Awesome.
amazing. She's amazing.
She's got everybody, literally the town are signing up to her fan club. It's just amazing. She has a show on now at the gallery. She's doing workshops. She's all over this area with her little sign up saying, "Hi, I'm an artist in residence. Speak to me. Speak to me." She's gathering materials to make her impounding the rocks to make her pigment. She's awesome. Oh my God.
She's amazing. She's amazing. She was down here. We have a few of her things in the Art 400 exhibit right now, and I was just saying to her, because I was saying, I wish we had a pigment shop in St. Andrews, just like a Venice style pigment shop, old school, big shelves behind with the glass, like
all the different colors.
And so I really love these kind of installations where you kind of put shops inside of galleries. So I was talking to her about maybe we can do, because this used to be a general store, Sunbury Shores, right? They used to bring in goods from the boat, and I was like, maybe we can do a general store installation, and we can build a counter, and Renata can come in and we can get these pigments, and they can be all from around here. It'd be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What can you say? It's so good. Stephen, thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little bit, and really look forward to having you here at Sunbury on August 20th to the 22nd. Everybody listening, sign right up and get it while you can. Thanks a lot, Stephen. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Look forward to it.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.